Ashley Parker's baby registry had 47 items on it. By 2:30 p.m. on April 15, 2005, she had opened 31 gifts at her baby shower in Dublin, Ohio. Pink onesies, a stroller, a baby monitor. 30 friends and family members watched her smile, laugh, and rub her 7-month pregnant belly while opening each present. At 2:47 p.m., Ashley excused herself to use the bathroom. She never came back. The 32nd gift sat unopened on the living room floor for the next 19 years. It was a white teddy bear with a note attached, "For baby Lily from your Auntie Lauren." Lauren Bennett was Ashley's best friend, the woman who'd organized the entire party, the woman who'd decorated every room with pink balloons and "It's a Girl" banners, the woman who'd spent 3 weeks planning the perfect celebration for her pregnant best friend, and the woman who, 19 years later, would finally confess to police what happened during those missing 14 minutes when Ashley went to the bathroom and never returned. Because sometimes the person who throws you a party isn't celebrating with you. Sometimes they're saying goodbye. This is the story of how a baby shower became a crime scene, how a pregnant woman vanished from a house full of witnesses, and how the person everyone trusted to plan the perfect celebration had been planning something else entirely. April 15th, 2005, 2:47 p.m. Ashley Parker walked down a hallway in her own mother's house, surrounded by people who loved her. 14 minutes later, she was gone, and the baby she was carrying would never be born. What happened in those 14 minutes would haunt Dublin, Ohio for nearly 2 decades. The house at 2847 Riverside Drive in Dublin, Ohio, had been built in 1978, a modest 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters that had weathered 27 Ohio winters by the time Karen Parker purchased it in 1992. The neighborhood was the kind of place where children rode bicycles until streetlights came on, where neighbors borrowed cups of sugar and returned casserole dishes promptly, where everyone knew everyone else's business but pretended not to for the sake of politeness. On April 15, 2005, Karen Parker had spent 3 days preparing her home for her daughter's baby shower. She'd cleaned every room twice, polished the hardwood floors until they gleamed, arranged fresh flowers in crystal vases throughout the house, and set up folding chairs borrowed from First Presbyterian Church in the living room to accommodate 30 guests. The dining room table held 3 types of sandwiches cut into triangles with crusts removed of fruit salad, arranged in a watermelon carved to look like a baby carriage chips and dips in coordinating bowls, and a 3-tier pink and white cake decorated with tiny edible baby booties and fondant rattles. Pink balloons clustered in every corner of every room, their ribbons dangling to various heights, creating a canopy of celebration. A banner stretched across the fireplace mantel reading, "It's a Girl," in glittery letters that caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. Gift bags covered one entire section of the living room, arranged meticulously by size, each one carefully inspected by Karen to ensure nothing was damaged during transport from cars to house. She'd created a gift registry tracking sheet on her computer at work, printing multiple copies, checking off each item as Ashley opened it, making detailed notes about who gave what, so thank you cards could be written properly with personalized messages. Karen Parker, 58 years old, had worked as an administrative assistant at Ohio State University for 32 years, a job that had provided modest income and excellent health insurance for her family. She'd raised Ashley as a single mother after divorcing Ashley's father when the girl was 3 years old, a decision that had been financially difficult but emotionally necessary. Every decision Karen made in the subsequent 20 years had been calculated to provide stability and opportunity for her only child. She'd scrimped and saved to afford the house in a good school district with low crime rates and excellent test scores. She'd worked overtime shifts to pay for Ashley's college tuition at Ohio University. She'd been there for every milestone, every achievement, every disappointment, every triumph. And now at 58, Karen was preparing to become a grandmother. The prospect filled her with a joy she hadn't experienced since the day Ashley was born. She'd already converted her spare bedroom into a nursery, spending weekends painting the walls a soft lavender color, assembling a crib she'd purchased on sale at Target stocking shelves with diapers and baby supplies, purchased gradually over months to spread out the expense. She planned to provide childcare while Ashley finished her nursing degree, just as she'd supported every other goal her daughter had pursued with determination and focus. Ashley Marie Parker had been born on November 3, 1981, making her 23 years old on that April afternoon, when pink balloons swayed gently in the air-conditioned breeze and guests gathered to celebrate her impending motherhood. She stood 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighed 157 pounds before pregnancy brought an additional 30 pounds that her doctor assured her was perfectly healthy, had brown hair that she wore in long waves past her shoulders, and green eyes that her mother always said could see straight through to a person's soul, detecting dishonesty and pretense with uncanny accuracy. Throughout childhood and adolescence, Ashley had been the kind of daughter that other mothers envied, reliable and responsible beyond her years, never causing trouble or making poor decisions that required parental intervention. She'd graduated from Dublin High School in 1999 with a 3.8 GPA, earned a spot on the honor roll every semester, served as vice president of the student council during her senior year, and volunteered at the local animal shelter every weekend, walking dogs and socializing cats who needed human interaction before they could be adopted. College at Ohio University in Athens had been her dream since middle school, and she'd pursued it with characteristic determination, declaring a nursing major her freshman year, and never wavering from that path despite the challenging coursework and demanding clinical rotations. She'd worked part-time jobs throughout college to supplement the financial aid and loans that made her education possible. The pregnancy hadn't been planned. Ashley discovered she was carrying baby Lily in September 2004, during what should have been her senior year of nursing school, the final stretch before graduation and the nursing career she'd worked so hard to achieve. The father was Tyler Freeman, a graduate student in the engineering program whom Ashley had dated for 8 months. Their relationship had been comfortable rather than passionate, built on shared study sessions at the Alden Library and weekend brunches at the Court Street Diner, where they'd discuss their academic work and future career plans. When Ashley told Tyler about the pregnancy in October, his response had been measured and practical rather than emotional. He'd offered financial support, discussed custody arrangements with lawyer-like precision, but made it clear that marriage wasn't something he felt ready for at 26 years old with graduate school still unfinished and career prospects uncertain. He wasn't rejecting Ashley or the baby, he'd explained carefully. He simply wasn't prepared to make lifelong commitment promises he wasn't certain he could keep. Ashley had made her own decision with the same practical approach that characterized everything in her life. She would continue her nursing degree, taking a semester off for the birth and recovery, then returning to complete her final year with even more determination than before. She would raise baby Lily with her mother's help, creating the kind of stable, loving home that Karen had provided for her. She would create a co-parenting arrangement with Tyler that prioritized baby Lily's well-being over any adult romantic complications. Tyler could be as involved as he chose, but Ashley wouldn't build her future around someone who wasn't fully committed to being part of it. By April 2005, 7 months into the pregnancy, Ashley had everything organized with her characteristic attention to detail. Her nursery was ready, painted and furnished and stocked with everything a newborn would need. Her hospital bag was packed and sitting by the front door of her apartment, ready to grab at the first sign of labor. Her birth plan was detailed across 3 pages of carefully researched preferences about pain management, delivery positions, and immediate postpartum care. Her maternity leave from her part-time job at Riverside Hospital was approved and documented. Her professors had agreed to let her make up coursework after the birth, impressed by her dedication and academic record. Everything was proceeding according to plan, the kind of careful planning that had always characterized Ashley's approach to life. The baby shower had been Lauren Bennett's idea, proposed in January when Ashley's pregnancy was just beginning to show beneath loose sweaters and oversized shirts that she wore to clinical rotations. Lauren had insisted on organizing everything, waving away Ashley's protests about the expense and effort with generous enthusiasm. "You're having a baby," Lauren had said, squeezing Ashley's hand across the table at Bob Evans where they had met for their weekly breakfast tradition. "This is huge. You deserve to be celebrated. Let me do this for you. Please. It would mean so much to me to give you this gift." Lauren Marie Bennett had been Ashley's best friend since their freshman year at Ohio University in 1999, when they'd been randomly assigned as roommates in Boyd Hall, an arrangement that could have been disastrous given their personality differences, but instead became the foundation of a friendship that survived 6 years, 2 additional roommate situations, multiple romantic relationships, academic stress, and the general chaos of transitioning from adolescence to adulthood. Lauren was 2 months older than Ashley. Born September 7, 1981 in Cleveland, Ohio, into a household that looked perfect from the outside, but was fractured by emotional instability. She stood 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 132 pounds, had blonde hair. She highlighted regularly to maintain a sun-kissed appearance that required significant time and expense, and blue eyes that she emphasized with careful makeup application, learned from YouTube tutorials and magazine articles. Where Ashley was practical and grounded, Lauren was impulsive and emotional. Where Ashley made careful plans and followed through systematically, Lauren followed instincts and adjusted as situations developed. The friendship worked because their differences complemented rather than conflicted, each woman providing what the other lacked. Lauren had grown up in a household that looked perfect from the outside. Her father a successful corporate attorney, her mother a real estate agent who sold expensive homes in Cleveland suburbs. But beneath that surface perfection lay constant fighting. Her parents' constant verbal warfare that erupted over everything from finances to household responsibilities to whose career took priority. Their eventual divorce when Lauren was 16 had been both relief and trauma, followed by a custody battle that turned Lauren into a pawn in their continuing war against each other. She'd learned early to read emotional undercurrents, to navigate conflict by becoming whatever version of herself others needed her to be, shape-shifting through personalities like trying on clothes until she found one that made people happy. By the time she arrived at Ohio University for freshman orientation, Lauren had perfected the art of being likable, agreeable, indispensable to the people around her, the friend everyone wanted because she anticipated needs before they were expressed. Her friendship with Ashley had become the most stable relationship in Lauren's life, the one constant in a world that had always felt unpredictable and conditional. Ashley didn't judge. Ashley didn't make demands. Ashley simply accepted Lauren exactly as she was, offering the kind of unconditional positive regard that Lauren had never received from her own family. Over 6 years, that friendship had deepened into something Lauren depended on emotionally, in ways she couldn't fully articulate even to herself. When Ashley announced her pregnancy in October 2004, Lauren's initial reaction had been enthusiastic support, the kind of response that friends are expected to have when other friends share major life news. She'd accompanied Ashley to prenatal appointments, sitting in waiting rooms and holding her hand during ultrasounds. She'd helped shop for maternity clothes, offering opinions on what was flattering and practical. She'd listened to concerns about how the baby would impact Ashley's education and career plans, offering reassurance and encouragement. She'd assured Ashley repeatedly that everything would work out perfectly, that baby Lily would be loved and cared for, that Ashley was going to be an amazing mother who would balance parenting and career with the same competence she applied to everything else. But beneath the surface enthusiasm, something darker had been growing in Lauren's mind during those months between October and April, a creeping realization that filled her with anxiety she couldn't express to anyone. The pregnancy meant Ashley's life was changing in fundamental ways that would necessarily alter their friendship. Ashley would have a child, a family of her own, responsibilities that would take absolute priority over any other relationship. The weekly breakfasts would become monthly, then quarterly, then annual if they happened at all. The late-night phone calls would be interrupted by baby cries and feeding schedules. The spontaneous weekend trips they'd taken during college would become impossible with an infant who needed constant care. Lauren would lose her best friend, not immediately, not obviously, but gradually, inevitably, as Ashley's world expanded to include baby Lily and motherhood and all the demands that came with raising a child. Lauren would become secondary, an old friend who got occasional texts and birthday cards, but wasn't part of Ashley's daily life anymore. Replaced by mommy groups and pediatrician appointments and the all-consuming reality of caring for another human being. The thought terrified Lauren in ways she couldn't express to anyone, including herself, because admitting the fear would require acknowledging how unhealthily dependent she'd become on Ashley's friendship. She'd built her entire adult identity around being Ashley's best friend, the person Ashley called first with news, the person Ashley trusted most outside her mother. Losing that position meant losing the thing that made Lauren feel valuable and important and necessary in someone else's life. So Lauren had begun planning the baby shower in January, with genuine intention to celebrate Ashley's pregnancy and impending motherhood. But somewhere during those 3 months of planning, as she watched Ashley's belly grow and heard her talk excitedly about baby names and nursery colors and future plans that increasingly didn't include Lauren, the intention had transformed into something else entirely. The party planning had become something much darker, though Lauren couldn't acknowledge that truth even to herself until much later. She'd booked the date for April 15th, a Saturday, when the weather forecast predicted mild temperatures and clear skies, perfect for guests who might want to enjoy Karen's backyard. She'd created the guest list with Ashley's input, sending printed invitations to relatives, college friends, co-workers from the hospital where Ashley worked part-time. She'd coordinated with Karen about menu planning, selecting sandwiches and salads and a beautiful pink cake from the bakery on Bridge Street that specialized in custom celebration cakes. She'd organized games, typical baby shower entertainment that would make guests laugh and create photo opportunities for the scrapbook she'd promised to assemble, guessing babies' weight and length based on measuring tape around bellies, matching celebrity babies to their famous parents, creating advice cards for the new mother with wisdom and warnings about parenting challenges, decorating onesies with fabric markers in creative designs. Every detail had been carefully considered and executed with the organizational skills Lauren had developed, working as an event coordinator for a catering company that handled weddings and corporate events. Nobody suspected that Lauren had been planning something else entirely during those same 3 months, something that had nothing to do with celebration. Nobody noticed that she'd been researching the layout of Karen's house during visits, memorizing which windows opened easily, which doors could be accessed from the backyard without being visible from the street. Nobody knew that Lauren had been studying the timing of baby showers, calculating how long gift opening typically took, identifying the moment when Ashley would most likely excuse herself to use the bathroom based on patterns Lauren had observed during Ashley's pregnancy. Nobody understood that when Lauren talked enthusiastically about wanting the perfect celebration for Ashley, she meant perfect in a way that had nothing to do with joy or happiness, or welcoming new life into the world. The baby shower began at 12:30 p.m. on April 15, 2005, exactly as Lauren's meticulously crafted timeline specified. Guests arrived in clusters, parking along Riverside Drive because Karen's driveway could only accommodate 3 cars comfortably. They carried wrapped gifts and casserole dishes, wearing spring dresses in pastel colors and comfortable shoes, exclaiming over how beautiful Ashley looked with her pregnant belly prominent beneath a pink maternity dress she'd purchased specifically for this occasion at a maternity boutique in Columbus. Karen greeted each arrival at the door with genuine warmth, accepting coats even though the April weather was mild enough that most guests hadn't worn them, directing people to the living room where folding chairs had been arranged in a semicircle facing the couch where Ashley would sit for the gift opening ceremony. The house filled quickly with the sounds of female voices, laughter, compliments about the decorations, questions about Ashley's due date, and whether she was hoping for a vaginal birth or planning a C-section based on medical advice. Lauren moved through the gathering with practiced social grace developed through years of professional event coordination, ensuring everyone had drinks refilled regularly, introducing guests who didn't know each other with brief context about how they connected to Ashley, orchestrating group photos with the efficiency of someone who'd done this professionally for years. She wore a blue sundress that complemented her blonde hair, carried a clipboard with her timeline and checklist attached, consulted her watch frequently to ensure activities proceeded on schedule without seeming rushed or forced. At 1 p.m. lunch was served buffet-style from the dining room, guests balancing paper plates on their laps, while sitting in the folding chairs commenting on how delicious everything was, sharing pregnancy stories and parenting advice with Ashley, who listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions about breastfeeding and sleep schedules and developmental milestones. Lauren documented everything with Ashley's digital camera, taking photos that would later be printed and assembled into a scrapbook she'd promised to create as her gift, capturing moments that Ashley would supposedly treasure forever. At 1:30 p.m., the games began according to Lauren's precisely timed schedule. Lauren led each activity with enthusiasm that encouraged participation even from guests who typically avoided group activities or felt self-conscious about playing silly games. She awarded small prizes to winners, ceramic picture frames and scented candles purchased at Target specifically for this purpose, making everyone feel appreciated for participating. She kept score accurately, maintained high energy throughout, transitioned smoothly between activities without awkward pauses that might have allowed attention to wander. At 2 p.m., gift opening began on schedule. Ashley settled into the couch with some difficulty given her 7-month pregnant belly, surrounded by pillows that supported her back and provided comfort during what would be an extended sitting session. Karen positioned herself beside her daughter with the gift registry tracking sheet, pen ready to check off each item as it was opened, and note who had given it for thank you card purposes. Lauren directed the flow with professional efficiency, handing gifts to Ashley in a sequence she'd predetermined based on size and giver, ensuring family members went first, followed by close friends and then co-workers and acquaintances. The opening proceeded methodically, each gift presented to Ashley, admired by her with genuine appreciation, shown to guests who offered appropriate compliments and congratulations, then carefully set aside to make room for the next package. Baby clothes in newborn and 3-month sizes because everyone knew newborns grew quickly. Receiving blankets in soft pastels, bottles and pacifiers and a sterilizer, a breast pump that made several guests laugh about the reality of motherhood beyond the romantic imagery, a diaper bag stylishly designed to not look like a diaper bag, board books with bright pictures and simple text, stuffed animals that would eventually fill baby Lily's crib. The pile of opened gifts grew steadily while the pile of wrapped packages diminished at a rate that Lauren monitored carefully against her internal timeline. If you're interested in how modern forensic breakthroughs are solving cases that seemed impossible for decades, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. By 2:30 p.m., Ashley had opened 31 of the 47 gifts on her registry, making steady progress but showing visible signs of fatigue. She shifted position frequently to relieve pressure on her lower back that came from sitting in one place for an extended period. Her hand moved repeatedly to support her belly where baby Lily was presumably shifting around as well. She drank water from the glass Karen kept refilling, staying hydrated as her pregnancy books had emphasized. But despite the physical discomfort, Ashley maintained her gracious demeanor, thanking each giver personally, expressing genuine appreciation for the thoughtfulness behind each selection, making people feel good about their contribution to baby Lily's future. Lauren monitored Ashley's energy level carefully, noting the slight strain in her smile, the way her responses became marginally less enthusiastic as fatigue accumulated, the increased frequency with which she adjusted her position on the couch. Lauren knew Ashley well enough to predict within a few minutes when she would need to take a bathroom break, a calculation based on 3 months of observation and 6 years of intimate friendship knowledge. At 2:43 p.m., Lauren handed Ashley gift number 32, the white teddy bear she'd purchased 3 weeks earlier at a baby boutique in Columbus, wrapped carefully in pink paper with white ribbons tied in an elaborate bow that had taken Lauren 15 minutes to perfect. Ashley read the tag aloud to the assembled guests, "For baby Lily from your Auntie Lauren." The room responded with collective awe sounds that filled the space with genuine warmth. Ashley smiled at Lauren with the genuine affection of someone who had no reason to suspect anything wrong, someone whose trust was absolute and uncomplicated. "You're going to be the best aunt," Ashley said, her voice carrying emotion that made several guests reach for tissues. Lauren smiled back, her face showing only affection and excitement for the future they would supposedly share as best friends navigating motherhood together. Inside, her heart was racing so fast she worried people could see her pulse in her neck. 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, Ashley would excuse herself. In 4 minutes, everything would change in ways that none of these 30 people could possibly anticipate. At 2:47 p.m., exactly as Lauren had anticipated based on 3 months of observation and planning, Ashley placed both hands on her lower back and stood from the couch with the careful, deliberate movement of someone 7 months pregnant whose body was carrying significant extra weight. "I need to use the bathroom," she announced to the room, her voice matter-of-fact, slightly apologetic for interrupting the gift-opening ceremony. Several guests laughed knowingly, sharing glances that acknowledged the universal experience of pregnancy bladders that required frequent emptying. "Take your time, sweetie," Karen said from her position beside the couch, pen still in hand, completely unaware that these would be the last words she'd speak to her daughter while Ashley was alive. "We'll be here when you get back." Ashley Parker walked down the hallway toward the bathroom at the rear of the house, her movements slow and careful. Her pink maternity dress swished slightly as she moved, Her left hand trailed along the wall for balance, a habit she'd developed as her center of gravity shifted with pregnancy. Her right hand supported her belly protectively, the natural gesture of a mother already bonding with the child she carried. Baby Lily shifted inside her, unaware that these were the final moments of her existence, the last time she would feel her mother's hand on the outside of the womb that had been her entire world for 7 months. 30 people remained in the living room talking among themselves about babies and pregnancy and parenting challenges, admiring the gifts that had been opened, snacking on leftover cake and fruit salad, completely absorbed in the celebration they believed was unfolding exactly as planned. Nobody watched Ashley disappear around the corner. Nobody thought anything was wrong. Why would they? Ashley was using the bathroom at her own baby shower in her mother's house, surrounded by people who loved her and wanted only good things for her future. Lauren waited exactly 60 seconds, counting silently in her head while maintaining animated conversation with Ashley's aunt about how excited everyone was for the baby's arrival in June. Then she excused herself casually, her tone suggesting nothing more important than checking on party supplies. "I'm going to check on the cake situation," she announced to no one in particular, though several people nodded acknowledgement. She walked toward the kitchen with the relaxed gait of someone performing a mundane task, giving no indication that her heart was pounding so hard she felt dizzy. The hallway was empty and quiet when Lauren entered it from the kitchen. The bathroom door was closed and she could hear water running inside, Ashley washing her hands based on the sound pattern. Lauren's heart pounded so hard she wondered if guests in the living room could hear it through the walls. This was the moment. Everything she'd planned for 3 months, every detail she'd obsessed over during sleepless nights, every fear and jealousy and desperate need that had accumulated over years, came down to the next 14 minutes. She'd researched this extensively using public library computers where her searches couldn't be traced back to her home internet connection. She knew that Ashley's mother would wait approximately 10 minutes before becoming concerned enough to check on her daughter. She knew that other guests would wait even longer, assuming pregnancy-related bathroom issues that polite people don't rush. She had 14 minutes maximum to complete what she needed to do before someone came looking for Ashley. 14 minutes to execute a plan that would destroy multiple lives but seemed, in Lauren's distorted thinking, like the only way to prevent the loss she couldn't bear. Lauren moved past the bathroom door toward the back door that opened into Karen's backyard, the door she'd unlocked earlier while helping Karen bring in folding chairs from the garage. Now she pushed it open quietly, stepped outside into the mild April afternoon where birds sang and flowers bloomed, and the world continued its normal progression, completely indifferent to the horror about to unfold. The backyard was enclosed by a wooden privacy fence, 6 feet tall, painted white but showing age in places where paint had peeled or wood had weathered. A gate in the far corner opened onto an alley running behind the houses on Riverside Drive, a service access used for garbage trucks and occasional parking overflow. Lauren had parked her car in that alley at 11:30 a.m. before guests began arriving in numbers that would fill all the street parking. She'd explained to Karen that she wanted to leave spots available for guests, a thoughtfulness that Karen had appreciated without questioning. Nobody knew that Lauren's actual reason was to provide quick, unseen access to the back of the house, a getaway route that wouldn't be visible from the street where neighbors might notice suspicious activity. Lauren stood in the backyard, breathing carefully, trying to control the adrenaline flooding her system and making her hands shake. In approximately 3 minutes, Ashley would finish in the bathroom and emerge into the hallway. Lauren would be waiting, and everything would change in ways that couldn't be undone or taken back or explained away as a terrible mistake. At 2:51 p.m., the bathroom door opened with a soft click that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet hallway. Ashley emerged, still adjusting her maternity dress, one hand supporting her belly where baby Lily was moving in response to her mother's movement. She looked tired but content, ready to return to the party and finish opening the remaining gifts. She turned instinctively toward the living room, toward the sounds of conversation and laughter, toward the celebration that was supposed to be honoring her and her unborn daughter. But Lauren was her best friend, the person who'd organized this entire celebration, who'd spent weeks planning every detail. If Lauren wanted to show her something, it must be important, another surprise element of this elaborately planned day. "What is it?" Ashley asked, walking slowly toward Lauren, her movements careful and deliberate. "It's a surprise," Lauren said, opening the back door and letting afternoon sunlight stream into the hallway. "Just come outside for like 2 minutes. I promise it'll be worth it." Ashley Parker followed her best friend out the back door into the backyard, trusting completely because why wouldn't she trust Lauren? The person who'd been her closest friend for 6 years, who'd supported her through every challenge and celebrated every success. The April air was mild and pleasant, carrying the scent of early spring flowers blooming in neighboring gardens. The sun was bright after the dimmer interior lighting of the house, creating clear shadows across the lawn where grass was beginning to turn green after winter's brown dormancy. Ashley blinked in the sudden brightness, momentarily disoriented by the transition from inside to outside. "What's going on?" Ashley asked, looking around the empty backyard with growing confusion. There was nothing here. No surprise, no additional gifts or decorations, just the grass and the fence and the gate leading to the alley. "Lauren, I really need to get back inside. Everyone's waiting. We still have like 15 more gifts to open." "I know," Lauren said quietly, her voice barely audible over the sound of birds singing in trees that lined the alley. Her hands were trembling. Her heart was racing. Her mind was screaming at her to stop, to turn around, to go back inside and pretend this moment had never happened. But she couldn't stop. She'd come too far in her planning, and her obsession to turn back now. "I'm sorry, Ashley. I'm so sorry." And then Lauren moved. What happened in the next 11 minutes would remain unknown to the 30 people waiting in Karen Parker's living room, sitting with their paper plates and plastic forks, chatting about baby names and parenting advice, occasionally glancing toward the hallway but not yet concerned because Ashley had only been gone 6 minutes. And pregnancy made bathroom visits take longer, and everything seemed perfectly normal on this beautiful April afternoon. At 2:58 p.m., Karen Parker stood from her position beside the couch and walked toward the hallway, a mother's instinct telling her something wasn't quite right, even though she couldn't articulate what. She'd give Ashley another minute, she decided, not wanting to embarrass her daughter by rushing her. But the concern was starting to build in that deep primal way that mothers develop after raising children through illness and injury, and the 1,000 small dangers of growing up. At 3:01 p.m., Karen knocked on the bathroom door with increasing urgency. "Ashley, honey, are you okay?" No response came from inside. Karen knocked again, harder this time, her voice rising with worry. "Ashley, answer me, please." Still no response. The silence was wrong, felt wrong in ways Karen's instincts were screaming about. Karen tried the door handle. It turned easily. The bathroom was empty. The window was closed and locked from inside. Ashley wasn't there. Karen's confusion transformed instantly into panic that flooded her body with adrenaline. She called Ashley's name loudly, her voice echoing through the house and causing guests in the living room to pause their conversations. She checked the other bathroom upstairs, taking stairs 2 at a time despite her age, but found it empty as well. She returned to the hallway at a run, noticed the back door was slightly ajar when it should have been closed, pushed it open and stepped into the backyard with growing dread. The backyard was empty. No Ashley. No sign of where she might have gone or why. The gate to the alley was swinging open slightly, moving in the breeze, suggesting someone had recently passed through without closing it properly behind them. Karen ran through the gate into the alley, looking both directions frantically. Empty. No car, no Ashley, no explanation for where her pregnant daughter had gone or why she would leave her own baby shower without telling anyone. Karen pulled her cell phone from her pocket with shaking hands and dialed Ashley's number, praying to hear her daughter's voice explaining this confusion with some logical reason that would make everything okay again. Inside the house, inside Ashley's purse that sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it because she was only going to the bathroom for a minute, her phone began ringing. The sound carried through the house, making it clear that Ashley hadn't taken her phone, hadn't planned to go anywhere, had simply vanished. By 3:27 p.m., Dublin Police Department officers were interviewing everyone who'd been present at the baby shower, trying to understand how this could have happened, searching for any detail that might explain Ashley's disappearance or provide direction for finding her before something terrible happened to her and her unborn baby. Lauren Bennett gave her statement to Officer Michael Torres at 3:45 p.m., sitting in Karen's kitchen, while police processed the backyard as a potential crime scene. She'd been in the kitchen checking on supplies for serving cake. She explained through tears that seemed entirely genuine. She'd heard Karen calling for Ashley but hadn't realized anything was seriously wrong until guests started searching the house and someone said Ashley was missing. She had no idea where Ashley could have gone or why she would leave. She was as confused and frightened as everyone else. Maybe more so because Ashley was her best friend, and the thought of something bad happening to her was unbearable. Officer Torres noted that Lauren seemed genuinely distraught. Tears streamed down her face continuously. Her hands shook visibly. Her voice broke repeatedly when she tried to speak about Ashley. Every observable indicator suggested authentic, emotional distress. Torres wrote in his report, "Lauren Bennett, best friend and party organizer. Very upset. Seems genuinely concerned. No obvious suspicion." The officer took detailed notes about Lauren's relationship with Ashley, her role in organizing the party, her timeline for the afternoon. Lauren provided everything willingly, answering every question, volunteering information before being asked, doing everything that a concerned friend would do in these circumstances. She explained that she'd been best friends with Ashley since college, that she'd been thrilled about the baby, that she'd spent weeks planning this celebration because Ashley deserved something special. Everything Lauren said was technically true, and nothing in her demeanor suggested she was lying or hiding information. Torres obtained Lauren's contact information and promised to follow up if they had additional questions. Lauren nodded, wiped her eyes with tissues Karen had provided, and returned to the living room where other guests sat in shocked silence, trying to process what had happened and wondering if they should leave or stay to support Karen, who was clearly falling apart emotionally. The 30-second gift remained on the floor where Ashley had placed it after reading the tag aloud to guests. The white teddy bear inside, with its hidden confession written on paper and tucked deep into the stuffing where only someone who knew exactly where to look would ever find it, would remain wrapped for 19 years, waiting for technology and investigative techniques that didn't exist in 2005 to finally reveal the truth about what happened during those 14 minutes when Ashley Parker walked out her mother's back door and disappeared forever. The Dublin Police Department's initial response to Ashley Parker's disappearance reflected the confusion. By 4 p.m. on April 15th, 6 patrol units had responded to the scene at 2847 Riverside Drive, filling the quiet suburban street with flashing lights that drew neighbors from their homes to stand on lawns asking what had happened. Officers interviewed guests who remained at the house, though several had already left before fully understanding the situation's seriousness, gone home thinking Ashley had perhaps stepped out for some reason and would return shortly with an explanation. Detective Maria Rodriguez, head of Dublin PD's investigative unit, arrived at 4:32 p.m. after being pulled from her daughter's soccer game by an urgent call from dispatch. Rodriguez, 41 years old with 17 years in law enforcement, including 8 with Columbus PD's Major Crimes Division, recognized immediately that the circumstances suggested foul play rather than voluntary disappearance. A pregnant woman 7 months along doesn't abandon her baby shower, her purse, her phone, and her car without explanation. The open back gate and the narrow window of opportunity pointed toward abduction, though the logistics of removing someone from a house full of witnesses without anyone noticing seemed nearly impossible. The crime scene analysis began with the bathroom where Ashley had last been definitively seen by multiple witnesses. Detective Rodriguez examined the small room carefully, looking for any indication of what had happened. The room showed no signs of struggle whatsoever, no blood spatter or smears, no disturbed items knocked over during a fight. The window was closed and locked from inside, eliminating that as a possible exit route. Ashley had clearly used the bathroom normally, washing her hands based on dampness still present in the sink and on the hand towel, and then exited into the hallway. What happened next remained unclear, but it hadn't happened in this bathroom. The backyard revealed more concerning evidence that transformed this from a confusing disappearance into a likely abduction. The gate to the alley showed fresh scratches on its latch mechanism, bright metal visible beneath old paint, suggesting it had been opened recently and perhaps forcefully. Footprints in the soft dirt near the gate, soil that had been moistened by rain 2 days earlier, indicated 2 different tread patterns. One set matched Ashley's size 7 maternity shoes that she'd kicked off by the couch when she'd settled in for gift opening. Another set was slightly larger and deeper, pressed more firmly into the soil, suggesting someone heavier had walked through here recently, probably within the last few hours based on the clarity of the impressions. Crime scene technicians photographed and cast these impressions using dental stone, though the sophistication of footprint analysis in 2005 was limited compared to modern forensic capabilities that would emerge over the next 2 decades. The casts could potentially be matched to specific shoes if a suspect was identified. but they couldn't tell investigators who had made them or where that person had gone after leaving Karen Parker's backyard through the gate that now swung open like an accusation. The alley behind Riverside Drive became the investigation's primary focus, as the most likely route for removing Ashley from the property without being seen from the street, where neighbors might have noticed unusual activity. Several neighbors, when questioned by officers going door to door, reported seeing a dark sedan, possibly blue or black, though memories were uncertain, parked in the alley earlier that day. Nobody had noted the license plate or make or model with sufficient detail to be useful. Nobody had found it suspicious because people occasionally used the alley for parking during neighborhood events when street spaces filled up quickly. The realization that someone had deliberately positioned a vehicle for quick, unseen access to Karen Parker's backyard sent chills through investigators who understood what that planning implied. Detective Rodriguez interviewed Karen Parker at 5:15 p.m. in the living room, where gifts still lay in neat piles, an abandoned celebration frozen in time, pink balloons swaying gently in the breeze from the open back door. Karen, still in shock, struggled to provide coherent answers to questions about Ashley's recent behavior, relationships, concerns, or any indication that she might have been in danger or planning to leave. She was happy, Karen insisted, her voice breaking repeatedly, hands clutching tissues that were completely saturated with tears. She was excited about the baby. She was looking forward to being a mother. She wouldn't leave. Someone took her. Someone took my daughter and my granddaughter. The interview with Lauren Bennett lasted significantly longer, nearly an hour of detailed questioning in Karen's kitchen while other officers continued processing the scene. Detective Rodriguez noted immediately that Lauren had been the party organizer, which meant she had intimate knowledge of the house layout, and that she'd been one of the last people to interact with Ashley before her disappearance. Lauren explained in detail that she'd been in the kitchen checking on cake supplies and preparing to serve dessert when Ashley went to the bathroom. She hadn't seen Ashley leave. She hadn't noticed anything unusual. She'd only realized something was wrong when Karen started screaming. "How well do you know Ashley?" Rodriguez asked, watching Lauren's face carefully for micro-expressions that might indicate deception or knowledge she wasn't sharing. The subtle tells that experienced detectives learn to recognize after years of interviewing people who are hiding information. "She's my best friend," Lauren said, tears flowing freely down her face, her voice thick with emotion. "We've been best friends since college. We were roommates freshman year. I love her like a sister. I need you to find her. Please. I don't know what I'll do if something happens to her. She's the most important person in my life." Rodriguez made extensive notes about Lauren's demeanor, her timeline for the afternoon, her relationship dynamics with Ashley, anything that might later prove relevant if this case went in directions that weren't yet clear. The woman seemed genuinely devastated, her grief appearing completely authentic. But Rodriguez's instincts, developed over 17 years of investigating human behavior at its worst, registered something she couldn't quite articulate, couldn't put into words that would hold up in a report. A discontinuity between Lauren's words and something beneath them, a fracture in the emotional presentation that didn't quite align. Not evidence of anything, not proof of deception, just an instinct that told Rodriguez to pay attention to Lauren Bennett, even though she had no concrete reason to suspect her of involvement. By 7 p.m., the initial search had expanded to include neighboring streets and properties within a half-mile radius. Officers went door to door showing Ashley's photo from the baby shower, recent pictures that showed her pregnancy clearly, asking if anyone had seen a pregnant woman walking or being forced into a vehicle, if anyone had heard unusual sounds, noticed suspicious vehicles or people. The response yielded nothing concrete beyond the multiple reports of the dark sedan in the alley, which seemed increasingly significant, but couldn't be tracked without better description or license plate information. Ashley's car remained parked in front of Karen's house exactly where she'd left it that morning, keys in her purse, completely undisturbed. Her cell phone records were pulled and examined, showing no calls or texts after 11:30 a.m., nothing that suggested she'd been in contact with anyone who might have been planning to meet her. Her bank account showed no unusual activity, no large withdrawals that might indicate planning to disappear, no purchases that seemed relevant. Her social media profiles checked thoroughly by investigators who were beginning to understand the importance of digital footprints. revealed nothing suggesting she'd been planning to leave or had been involved with anyone dangerous. Everything about Ashley Parker's life pointed to a stable, responsible young woman excited about impending motherhood, someone who had no reason to disappear voluntarily and every reason to stay exactly where she was. The boyfriend, Tyler Freeman, was located at his apartment in Athens and interviewed via phone by Columbus PD at Detective Rodriguez's request. Tyler's shock seemed genuine, his voice shaking as he tried to process what he was being told. He'd been planning to drive to Dublin the following weekend to attend a baby preparation class with Ashley, had been looking forward to feeling more ready for fatherhood, even though he and Ashley were no longer romantically involved. He had no explanation for her disappearance. He insisted their relationship, while no longer romantic, was friendly and cooperative regarding co-parenting plans they'd been developing. He agreed to come to Dublin immediately and submit to formal questioning and whatever tests police thought necessary. By midnight on April 15th, 12 hours after Ashley's disappearance, the Dublin Police Department had generated dozens of pages of witness statements, hundreds of photos of the scene and evidence, and absolutely no viable leads about what had happened or where Ashley had gone, or who might have taken her and why. Detective Rodriguez authorized Amber Alert protocols, though technically Ashley was 23 years old, and therefore did not qualify as a child abduction case under the strict definition. The media was contacted and briefed. Press conferences were scheduled for the following morning. Search parties were organized for dawn when visibility would allow systematic combing of parks and wooded areas. Karen Parker refused to leave the living room where the baby shower gifts remained exactly as they'd been when Ashley vanished. She sat on the couch where her daughter had opened presents just hours earlier, holding the pink maternity dress Ashley had been wearing, the fabric still carrying her scent, calling her daughter's phone repeatedly, even though it rang endlessly from the purse on the kitchen counter, an exercise in futility that Karen couldn't stop herself from repeating. The first anniversary of Ashley's disappearance arrived with cruel spring sunshine that seemed to mock the Parker family's continuing nightmare. Lauren Bennett spoke at the memorial, describing Ashley's kindness and the joy she brought to everyone, promising to never stop searching. Nobody suspected that behind her grief was guilt that consumed her completely. Karen Parker never stopped looking, spending every resource she had on private investigators who found nothing. Tyler Freeman moved to California, unable to remain where everything reminded him of the child he'd never meet. Lauren's life appeared to move forward successfully, but every night she woke from nightmares about those 14 minutes. Detective Rodriguez retired in 2018, her instincts about Lauren never validated but never forgotten. The case remained cold until 2024, when Detective James Harrison inherited the file and decided to try new forensic approaches that hadn't existed in 2005. The breakthrough came from examining the white teddy bear with modern technology. Inside the stuffing, forensic technicians found a note in Lauren's handwriting. "Ashley, I'm sorry, but Lily should have been mine. If I can't have her, nobody can." April 14th, 2005. The note, combined with DNA evidence of Ashley's blood in Lauren's car trunk recovered from a salvage yard, finally provided enough evidence for arrest. Lauren's confession came easily. She described strangling Ashley in the backyard while both women cried, dumping the body weighted with cinder blocks in Hoover Reservoir. For 19 years, she'd carried the secret, the guilt eating her alive. The arrest was almost a relief. The trial was brief. Lauren pleaded guilty to life without parole. Karen Parker addressed her at sentencing. "You stood in my house and cried while searching for the daughter you'd murdered. How could you live with yourself?" Lauren had no answer. She'd been asking herself the same question for 19 years. Ashley and baby Lily were finally buried together in July 2024. Karen died 8 months later, her life's purpose fulfilled. The white teddy bear became a symbol of how evil hides in plain sight, and how persistence and technology can eventually expose truth that seemed permanently hidden.